Hello. Are you up for being part of saving the world? Well, if you are, your first choice is, do you want to be part of the solution or part of the problem? Well, of course you want to be part of the solution, but at the moment you are likely part of the problem, and I'll tell you why. The big choice in how to save the world is between the ideas of Karl and the ideas and power of Christ. Karl Marx or Jesus Christ. They're the two big options before you in the Western world. And why you're likely at the moment part of the problem rather than part of the solution is that, well, ever since the 60s, Karl Marx's ideas have been creeping in. Of course, not called communism anymore. Really, probably not called anything. Cultural Marxism to its enemies, but to the people it's influencing, nothing except lovely sounding ideas. And if you're less than half my age, then probably from the kindergarten up, you've been subtly brainwashed and massaged into thinking that the solutions that Karl Marx put forward are the solutions to the world's problems. And even worse, since a lot of the people who've been feeding this to you are, I guess, innocent, but have just swallowed it themselves. And let me tell you, I was one of those. In the late 60s and early 70s, I was totally sucked into that sort of thing. And it's embarrassing to tell you, well, I won't tell you. It would be too embarrassing for me to tell you how many years it took me to work out, hang on, you were just sucked in by communist propaganda. Okay, it took a long time. So I'm not knocking you. I'm not disparaging you in any way. And I'm not really being nasty to the people who've been feeding you these lines, whether they're in the media or your teachers or wherever, because it is easy to get sucked into. But behind it all are the people who know what they are doing, the people who really believe in Marx and know that communism is exactly the word to describe what they are doing, and really want to turn Australia into a little communist China. Maybe some of them want to turn us into a communist North Korea, heaven forbid. But they are very good at managing chaos, and part of their program is to produce chaos in our countries. And that's coming out at the moment in the things that are being taught to kids at school, the things that are being taught to university students. They are not things that are going to equip them for life. They are not things that are going to equip them to really tackle the evils that there are in this world. They are things that are going to get them stirred up and angry and, I'm going to say, failures at life, but angry enough that they can cause chaos, that they can be recruits to bring in the full-blown Marxism or communism, and that's going to be really bad. So, I come back to it. What are you going to choose? Now, Marx looks like the easy way. It looks like the way that'll get you express train to where you're going. Well, talking about trains, let me tell you a little story. Many years ago, when one of my sons was at university, he galloped down the station steps after uni classes and saw, oh, the train's already in. So he raced up the platform, hopped into the train, settled down, and off it went. And sure enough, a few stations later, he looked out, oh yes, it's the familiar, well, he didn't expect it to be anything, but it was the familiar stations. And so he settled down with his laptop, as students do. And much, much later, when he was expecting to be closer to home, he looked up, and as they came to a station, he'd never heard of that before. The next station, I've never heard of that. Well, what he sort of hadn't quite appreciated was that from the same platform, trains to two different country towns in Melbourne left. Now, the one he wanted went sort of through the inner suburbs and then turned north to Bendigo. The one he'd actually caught went through the inner suburbs and then continued west to Ballarat. Well, needless to say, we got a rather plaintive phone call. Hello, I'm at Ballarat. Can you come and get me? Well, Karl and Christ are a bit like that. You know, when they're sitting at the platform, it's easy to get them mixed up. And they both look as though they're going to get you to solve the world's problems. In fact, I've got to say, sitting at the platform, the one from Karl Marx looks a lot better. It looks like it's going to be the Express, whereas the, I'm going to say Christ, is they're chugging all stations. But your problem is that they look like they're going to solve the problems, but then they diverge. Now, the one following Jesus Christ is really hard work, hard slog. It takes centuries. Well, we've been going 2 millennia, and there's still quite enough problems in the world because every generation needs the same problems fixed. So progress looks slow with Jesus, but it actually gets you to solutions that work and actually gets you to saving the world where you want to be. Karl Marx, it goes the other way. It looks to be speedy. Well, you kill lots of people, kill all the bad ones, get rid of all the haters, and we make everyone do what we want. You know, it's very appealing. It looks the speedy way to solve the problem. The only trouble is, it doesn't get you to utopia. It gets you to hell. I mean, that, well, metaphorically, probably literally too, but metaphorically. Now, of course, the ideas actually didn't start with Karl Marx. You can see them back sort of 4th century BC in Plato, and also 4th century BC you have Aristotle saying, well, that's a really dumb idea. Okay, well, it is a really dumb idea, but it's a humanly appealing one. And where it sort of popped up sort of in, well, more recent history is the French Revolution. Now, look, things were really bad in France. The aristos were really bad. The, going to say, peasants were starving. You know, things were terrible. It is not surprising they had a revolution. But all right, a revolution they had. They chopped off lots of heads. Yes, the bad aristos to the guillotine. A lot of ordinary people who'd done nothing wrong also went to the guillotine. But the really sad thing is, a few decades later, nothing had changed. There was just another lot of bad people in power and in money, and another lot of peasants starving. The system had not changed. The revolution had spilled a lot of blood, and I suppose actually if you count Napoleon Bonaparte being thrown up by the revolution and leading the French army on a rampage through Europe, and then to, well, I was going to say a suicide attack on Russia, the amount of bloodshed, the amount of ruin and destruction that was wrought was enormous. But for the French people, a few decades later, everything was back, you know, the status quo. It hadn't solved the problem. You know, the communists often say, oh, well, you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. Yeah, but you can break an awful lot of eggs in an egg farm without producing an omelette. And that's the thing. The ways of Karl break an awful lot of eggs. They never get you the omelette. But the ways of Jesus are much, much harder, much, much slower. But they actually produce the result you're looking for. And if you're interested to know how it works, tune into the next video and I'll explain a bit more.